Hello, I am joined by Spitfire. Hello, Spitfire.
Hello.
Your name is in reference to the British World War II airplane fighter air jet thing, right?
Yeah, it is.
I know there's a 21st Spitfire. Do you know who he is, or do you have like any relation with him, or what?
I know he is. I've had friendly banter over the name and stuff, but I've never been too close with him.
Okay. Do you know of any other Spitfires in any other communities or anything?
Not that I'm aware of. I recall there being a 77th, and I know there's a GDE Spitfire as well, so it seems to be fairly common.
um. So, how did you hear about Holdfast, and do you remember your first day playing?
Uh, I heard about it would have been late 2017, and I got it, I believe, December 25th, so Christmas Day 2017. Uh, I can't honestly remember my first day playing because it was a while ago. I'll have to say, like, basically I hopped on a pub and I just kind of hanged around for 15 minutes and then I hopped off. That's really all I can remember.
Hmm. You got Holdfast the day after I left the 77th, so I
Typical
can say I'm more
timing.
of a boomer than you are. Yes. Um. So, can you give me like a brief history of your backstory of like 2018, 2019, just stuff that isn't so recent?
Um, so I played around and just looked around at line battles for the first quarter of 2018, but I wouldn't say I really got active in a regiment until March, mid-March to late March, maybe around March 28th, I believe, which was actually my birthday of 2018. I was recruited by Tubahide, who was in the 77th previously and was now a footman, a fusilier in the 1st FGD. Joined that regiment. I was in the Discord for a little bit of time, and then after a week or two, I got settled and actually got active and started attending events with Viking, Solar RJ, Whiskey, J Bob, and all those guys. I was in the regiment for about 6 months and would make pretty much perfect attendance. 4 to 5 events a week, I think, is what they normally did. About 6 months after I had finally been promoted to corporal, I was in charge of one of the companies, which was equivalent to like a 77th section at the time. And then I transferred out of the regiment in September 14th of 2018, and then I joined the TRR, and I transferred in as a Lance Bombardier, the RD company. Um, I went from Lance Bombardier to lieutenant in about a week. Then we restructured the regiment and demoted all staff back down to sergeant. And eventually by March, which would have been roughly like 5.5 to 6 months after that, I had made it all the way up to RD Major. And as I was a Lance Bombardier, because I was the first person in RD, from a week into the regiment, I was in charge of RD. I just went in charge as a sergeant all the way up to Major. Uh, and I stayed in charge of RD for about 15 months in that first run, and Major of that for about half that time, if not a little bit more. In 2019, I did melee, and that's when I started getting into like helping run it. Like I was a ref for NWO Season 1. I know I was part of the first batch of melee server admins, and I helped ESR in one pickups, but that was about the extent of my EU involvement during that stage. And then a bit later in 2019, TR entered RGL Season 1, which was hosted by the TRB.
Oh God.
Yeah, much of us knew that as a bit of a flop. We ended up getting second place, and we got 15-1 by the 63E in the finals, but that one round is all we wanted. And that kind of wraps up the 2018, 2019 Dark Days.
Now, I actually completely forgot that you started off in the first FGD. Um, that was a turbulent regiment. I think. Did you notice like any turbulence or any drama with that regiment while you were there?
I mean, there's, of course, this drama in any regiment, just how well a regiment leader can try and hide it from the outside. Um, FGD was very open about it, as was the regiments we were beefing with. I don't necessarily think that it was a first FGD definitely didn't aid in sort of in event comms, and I certainly didn't, because like I would make fun of certain people. I think most of it just stemmed from poor relations with Jupiter and the 77th and them at the time, but eventually those relationships were fixed. and mended.
I think Viking might have been one of the reasons why the first FGD kind of collapsed. Did you notice like something iffy about Viking at all?
I wouldn't say it was the reason he collapsed because by then he was way gone. Viking started out active with the early days, probably 3 months in, about halfway through is when he started going inactive, and probably within a month and a half he had transferred power to J Bob, which was pretty much what everyone wanted, just because he wasn't active. There was one event I think as I eventually got to Lance Corporal, and he thought I was like 2 or 3 ranks below, and there was like 21 people in the voice com, and only like one other person knew who he was. I think issues could have been solved with having a more active leader, but by the time the first FGD dissolved, which was way after I had left, um, the command had certainly shifted. It was J Bob and Solar were still there, but I know Solar was helping out with the Brazilian side, the UBGE, which a lot of people don't know about. They came in after I left, and by then, pretty much all the NCOs and all the COs, such as Whiskey, were all gone, and as well as there was a few old heads like Space Ghost, but that was about it.
So why did you choose the TRR to transfer into?
They were a newer regiment, and from what I'd heard about them, they were growing faster than what was for the normal rate. Um, I think I went back actually in the NWO when I got moderator in season 2. I went back to a message, and it was may have been Amit, Starblazer, and Mercon were talking about it, and they said that the regiment was growing just surprisingly fast. And after a week, like they had maybe 17 enlisted when Honor left the KRA, and then by the time I joined, about 3.5 to 4 weeks in, there was 125 enlisted. And I figured, okay, this is a newer regiment that's growing fast, and they formed an RD company, so that's kind of what I wanted to get into. So that's where I pretty much figured this is the best bet, because there were other regiments with similar structures like the KRA, uh, but those were already well established, and I didn't really want to join a established regiment. Would rather have joined a newer growing one, which kind of I thought had a lot of potential in the future.
Speaking of the KRA, I know you had a little bit of a stint with the KRA. Was that in 2019?
Um, I believe no, technically it gets a bit rough because I left TR in early December of 2019. Didn't play the game for like 2 weeks, and then I kind of joined because I just joined a VC, was gaming in the KRA, and I just said, "What rank would I get?" And they said battery sergeant. Habos came in and said, "Just notch it down one." So I joined, and I was there for about a month. Then I left, and then I was out of the game for 2 months until I returned. But in that 1 month stint, I think I only ever attended 2 private line battles. Props to a few of the Royal Guards. They helped me lead in an internal once. I got waxed though. But other than those 3 events and maybe the occasional public line battle, I was not what I would define as active in the KRA. There just really wasn't much, for others there maybe, but for me that was the one time where I generally didn't want to play the game just because, I don't know, it was a different experience and I didn't enjoy it as much because maybe it's just because I wasn't able really to play RD as much. And other than the guys in RD, such as Henry and Yunker, I didn't really know many others that. And you also couldn't pick your line, so it was just a bit different, I guess.
So you took a break for 2 months. This is the beginning of 2020, I guess.
Yeah, that would be January and February of 2020.
So what were you doing in that time?
I was just too busy. Uh, I was playing baseball, and I was also just doing jazz and stuff, so I didn't really have as much time to play.
So what made you come back?
Coronavirus. I had a lot more time on my hands, and I went back into the Discord one day, and I saw like 50 people showing up for an event. And this was like maybe right after Scar Talon and Crescent had gone, so late March, early April. And so I figured, right, well, I might as well just rejoin, and that's what I did. I rejoined and got second to the top listed, I think.
So since you rejoined up until now, it's just been one like stable, consistent, showing up every week sort of deal with you.
Yeah. So about it's about a year since I rejoined. Oh, I would not. I mean, yeah, about a year, maybe a little longer.
Cool. So let's get into the regimental side of things. a little bit more specific about the TRR. So, like, what are your responsibilities right now? Are you happy with them? Do you feel like they're too much, too little? Like, what do you think?
I think there are a lot, and I was hoping to get rid of a good amount of them away, just so I could have more time. I haven't been able to achieve that yet. But more or less, what I do is I'm in charge of the RD company. I'm also a major, so I'm third in command. So I also help out with other companies now, slash sort of overalling or leading the whole regiment events now. Um, Technically, I'm one of the leaders of our comp. Uh, I guess I'm the leader. I guess I'm in charge of our servers as well as our Saturday event. And I'm pretty much the only active person except for Honor on the regiment registry and Steam admins. I also help out with just like helping with equipment, not as much recently. And I'm kind of also in charge of our RD and melee trainings as well as leadership for the second bat line.
Uh,
That's about it.
Speaking of honor, obviously he's very important. Like he's the one that founded the regiment, right? But can you
Very
speak to his like current importance and how much of an influence he is like currently to the regiment?
to the regiment. Um, I think Paprika went over this well, is that he can be very positive. He can also be very scary at times if you piss him off because he doesn't care to ban you really. Um, Honor in terms like he's probably the best line leader we have in events and our best comp leader, and he is one of the leaders of comp along with myself and Paprika. And he's also one of our company leaders, and he helps pretty much assist them. His company, the Coldstream Guard, which is also our largest company. So yeah, I'd say he's pretty important.
Someone else that's very important that I knew of him, but not much. But Sponge Boob, or Sponge as you guys call him. Can you speak about him a little bit and kind of what his deal is?
So Sponge is the second in command, and he's the only person in the regiment that's not attached to a specific company. Um, he's European, so you may have missed him. But he's also important. He's kind of trying to help get our EU side up a bit more and just generally EU competitive, as well as just our actual EU members and EU leadership, just because our regiment's 80% North American. So he's kind of just, as a second in command, while he does attend the occasional NA event, um, he's predominantly just trying to help get our EU side up there. And unlike pretty much anyone else in the regiment, I don't think he's a person I've ever seen angry. He's probably one of the most positive people we have, which is always a welcome treat.
So you said 80% of the regiment is NA. And what do you think is keeping him in the regiment? Because I'm sure he has a lot of choices in EU, right?
Yeah. Um, I mean, if I him and Thib have both been given many offers to join EU regiments. The latter of which has turned them down. I think Sponge stays in the regiment just because he cares about the regiment more than he does about the region. As long as we continue to attend EU events and continue to try and get our EU comp up, I think he'll always stay. Just because I think he cares more about the regiment than he does the regiment on EU, if that makes sense.
Okay. Well, hopefully he does get some of the EU mojo going, I guess.
Yeah.
um, let's see here. This is going back in time a bit, but I know you guys had to deal with something called Brexit, infamous Brexit. Do you want to speak on that at all?
Brexit. So Brexit happened. Uh, so it is just going to take a bit. I'll try and sum it up really quickly. Um, when we formed the regiment in 2019, we formed with attempting to be 50% European, 50% Northern American. So with that, a lot of fast promotions went out to everyone. By early 2020, the first friction between EU and NA officers was starting, and there was little meme groups popping up. And I believe it was in February, late February, there was a guy named Shiro Chef. Shiro Chef was in the regiment, and he more or less had many issues, and he would eventually be banned. But it got the ball rolling, and then there was another person named Gallagher, who was a corporal, and he joined the VC one night, and there was maybe 25 people in the VC, predominantly Europeans on NA time, and they started forming meme groups. One of the more famous would have been the Somali Pirates, something SSS, which I know has been brought up as meme names before with Hermiki and the TRB guys in 2020. Um, and they formed their own Discord called the TRL, which standed for the TR Loyalists. They were loyal to the regiment, but they weren't loyal to the command. And myself, Steph, who's a captain in the TRB now, and the lieutenant colonel at the time, and Honor went into the Discord and told everyone they had 1 hour. Anyone that didn't leave would have been banned. All 25 people rejoined. However, um, people were going to be blamed for it. And Gallagher was pulled into a VC and tried to scapegoat 2 or 3 other EU guys, and he was leaving the regiment in a month anyway, and he was banned, and that was the end of that. Now, there was issues 2 weeks later in which Steph called Hey Bills a ginger, words that I cannot respond with in a 77th event. Um, Ed was very pissed off, to say the least, rightfully so. And in an officer vote, Steph was demoted, and we used the opportunity to also demote a majority of our higher up EU staff who either weren't showing to events or were just not performing to the level we wanted them to, because our NA events we were stomping, and our EU we had lost like 12 in a row, even though we were bringing 45 guys to the European events. We had the lowest skill at the EU ranks, like guys like Praya, Thomas Brink, Aquan, but we just didn't have it at the upper level. In April, uh, they formed a separate Discord. Actually, at the start of April, Steph went to Ox. He got into an issue with a guy named Turtle, who was a major at the time. He's now like a higher enlisted, and he left the regiment. He got into talks with Shiroshef, and they formed what became known as the 17th. They planned to form that regiment. Just a little thing, Shiroshef would later be cooed by Steph. And when they formed that regiment, their hopes was to form it off a majority of TR EU guys. I believe it was April 7th, going into April 8th, that at the EU promo ceremony, all the European staff left. I immediately, I didn't waste any time. The second they said they were leaving, I wiped their tags and I ended everything. I took their tags away from the Discord, more or less because uh, I later, at the time I suspected and I later confirmed that they were DMing the EU members. By the end of the night, there was 19 bans out. Um, but there was one issue is that Guinea Pig was at the same level of command as I was, and I couldn't remember his role. And so we had the only NA person to leave was called Jim Jam, and she took a screenshot from JMO, who was just not thinking, and made a comment about the TR being an officer staff. She screenshotted that and sent it to McCormack, which, it after like a month, all was settled, but he wasn't happy at the time. So when I realized that that screenshot was sent out, she was pretty much told she could leave the regiment or she would be removed by the end of the night. Uh, she chose the latter, but eventually by the end of it, it was about 20 or so 20 Europeans and one North American that were gone. The only company that didn't lose anyone was Artie, and I was given a final sort of like ultimatum, I guess. Pretty much told that I promote the EU guys or they leave, and I told them to leave because I didn't want to promote them because I didn't think they deserved it to go to staff, and I wasn't going to promote people who forced it on me. And by the end of it, there was about 23 guys. I do think there was fault on both sides. I know this is from my perspective, which is biased. I'll outright admit that. Uh, as for the actual interactions that happened in VCs and chats, I can't remember. I have like 1,000 chat logs saved somewhere on a Discord I made, but I would have to go through a lot to figure out exactly what went down that day. Uh, but it was very much a mess.
Um, did you learn anything coming out of that, or did the TRR like majorly change at all? Like, what happened?
Promotions to staff were slowed down. Um, no EU staff was promoted for at least 2 months. We had one EU sergeant who stayed because there was no upper enlisted Europeans. So kind of more or less as a regiment, what we learned is to not go so hard on the bans, and I suppose to not promote people so fast that we didn't want in those ranks, because when we had to eventually take them down, it would cause issues.
Okay. And is that like the biggest stain or the biggest bump, I guess, the TRR has gone through?
Uh, yeah, I'd say so by far, to be honest. Like, I mean, our NA side wasn't really affected. We brought the same attendance we always did, but it was our EUs that went down, and our EU side has never really gone up, more or less. It's always been the smaller region.
Okay. Um, let's see here. So, why do you think the TRR has survived for so long? Because I remember the day the TRR was formed very clearly. I had Hay Bales DM me, and he said that, hey, there's this new regiment, and there's this guy named Honor. He used to be with us, and he just used a bunch of our stuff. He just copy pasted it, and can you do something about this? Because that was like back in my drama alert days. So Hay
Yeah,
Bales wanted me to, like, I don't know, I guess sabotage like the formation of the TRR, because we all thought that it was a 2 week regiment. Like, all the signs were there that it was a 2 week regiment, and so, why do you think the TRR is has survived for so long, and not survive but also thrive?
yeah. It's a little because I would have assumed we would. I didn't join during that time. I joined after the dust settled. All I know is RSCG, and one other European regiment blacklisted us because of that copy paste. Within a few days, they apologized to Honor and they lifted it. Uh, and yeah, it is ironic that a 2 week regiment somehow became one of the biggest on NA.
It's crazy.
I think I don't know. I don't really think I can't say why we survived. I mean, we've had our periods where we brought low attendance, and we've had our periods where we haven't gotten recruits. But at the same time, we don't really have an issue like other regiments do. Like, of our active members, they show up to a lot of events each week. So even if we have a small amount of people in the regiment, we still bring a decent amount of attendance. And as long as the attendance was there, we would keep attending events. I think we only had one other time where we took a break. I think it was like an 8 day break, and that was right before Christmas anyway. But that was just trying to get attendance back up. Um, but I don't know. I guess we just always had an active core in the regiment. That's never really been an issue of ours. And so as long as the attendance is there, so is the regiment. Uh, that the honor Haybills exchange has kind of become more of a meme now, though,
I
between them. Others, as Val points out so often.
think that's the only time Haybell's ever asked me for a favor, so I knew things were serious. Um, so a major change happened to the TRR. I think it was a few months ago now. Paprika coming in, and as well as the late Jagar, and I think a few others. I'm not sure, but so how has that changed the TRR? And yeah, you can just speak on that a little bit.
um, so Jagar and Paprika came from the KRA, and then Cornelius and Shanks rejoined the game. There was some controversy over whether or not we should have accepted those two, but Paprika pretty much convinced the majority of the staff it would do us a benefit in the long run, which I agreed with. Uh, More or less, joining those joining didn't really change anything in terms of the line battle experience. In terms of competitive, we, I mean, in terms of competitive, it was the same structure, the same activity. However, we ran a lot more trainings. We did more practice group fights against better tier regiments, and we obviously started performing better because we had 4 new starters, and obviously 2 days after they joined, or it may have actually been a day after they joined, we had the Austria-RGL finals, which we unfortunately lost to QRR 15-13.
That was a spicy match.
I enjoyed it a lot.
Um, so it's been a very positive thing having Paprika and some of the former 12ES guys coming in then.
Yeah, people had their issues with Corn and Shanks, but I mean, they definitely helped. And ironically enough, like Corn and Shanks actually helped, like with our EU people, and gave them some trainings. And I think one RGL match they both dropped 30, but I don't think they made many, if any, of the others.
So you DM me with something very interesting. I think it was a few days ago. You said that 80% of the good meleeers are in what, like 20% of the regiments or something like that. Can you just explain that a little bit and what kind of atmosphere creates good meleeers to join, or I guess how many are homegrown or something like that? I don't know.
So, yeah, kind of the people that didn't understand what he meant. Like, I looked it over, and it's just a quick look at the All Star team. Between the 45E, 63E, and TRR, as well as the 51st, QRR, and TRB, 80% of competent 18 mailers that could go on an all-star team are between six regiments in the game. Um, you join that regiment for melee. Uh, is kind of the point of it. I don't really know as much about a melee atmosphere. The TR may have one. I don't think to the extent of other regiments like the TRB or QRR, but we certainly push melee on newer people to improve and get better, and that can attract people, and just generally doing a lot of group fights as well.
I mean, yeah, it's worked out for you guys. You guys, I think, are well. You just won the RGL, so you're the number one, like de facto melee regiment, I'd say right now.
Yeah, I think a 63 fight would be still. I think a 63 fight would still be very very close. I'm not entirely sure. Like in terms of average skill of our meleeers, I still think we're behind the top three European regiments. Not necessarily by our A teams, although I do think EU group fighting is better, but just by the average skill of like the entire regiment, if that makes sense.
Okay. I do want to get into some more competitive stuff now. So what got you into competitive?
Uh, I think you were the first person I did a melee duel with, probably late April 2018. And it wasn't even a melee training, even though they called it that. It was just we would go up 1v1, you die, go to the back of the line. Uh, but I attempted to get better. Obviously, my frames set me back a little, and I didn't really just have enough time to improve or enough will to actually get super good. So I never did. But I just enjoyed the atmosphere of, playing in a line battle, but then having something that is a bit more serious.
I remember one time, because for the longest time, you were like a meme of just how bad someone could possibly be at melee. But looking back, I think it was because you had like a really bad computer, right?
Partly, yeah. I think I could have, if I put more time into it, I think I could have improved a bit more, but having a bad computer will only allow you to go so far in this game.
And then once you got a new computer, you were like a new Spitfire. You were like all of a sudden you were like high tier. You went from like low plus to like high minus like overnight.
I think I first stole you and a Kayla, and I was beating a Kayla, and then I went up two on you, and then you actually started trying, and that's when you asked if I had a PC upgrade.
It's crazy.
I think I mean obviously you can improve with a lower PC, but until you can get enough frames and get up there, you will always be held back by a PC in Melee, which is unfortunate.
So a while ago, I think you said it was 2.5 years ago, the infamous JMO tourney happened. um,
Yeah,
so I think the JMO tourney actually started off as an internal TRR tourney, correct?
yeah, it started out as a mess, but yeah.
Now I think if JMO kept it to like an internal TRR, like I think things might have actually been like okay-ish, maybe. But then he turned it just into a general melee tournament, and that's when things started to go south. Like, what do you remember from that whole experience?
Um, I agree that if it was an internal, it would have been fine. I just think JMO started it, but he didn't have enough time to finish it, and opening it up to everyone just kind of just added more things that he had to do in a short period of time. Um, I guess that shows to always make sure you have enough time to start something you finish. Yeah, we at least got a few people into the third round, which is something. But if it started out as an internal, I'm sure it would have been fine because there would have been a lot less people to deal with, like 20, maybe 30 at best.
Hmm. Um, Even though like it never really kicked off. I think that was your first time being like an admin for a melee tournament, and then you sort of became like you since then you were always like either the admin or you were the host of like melee stuff. So like how did you become like, because you've been a host of so many melee things, right? So, like, just like I have. So like how did that all happen?
Um, One way I guess is I never really figured it. I never really thought of it this way, but I kind of just thought about it now. Like at the time, I could never actually melee that great, so maybe I just decided in the back of my head to actually get involved in the administration of it, to be involved. But it started out with that JMO tournament, and then I know I did one Kumite one match, and then that was pretty much it. I think I helped out with a little refereeing of the first normal, and from that point on, I just kind of just when there was a tournament, I volunteered to help, or yeah, I just pretty much volunteered to help or sign up for like a referee or admin role for pretty much actually every tournament on NA that hasn't been specifically regiment run. I think minus the occasional one or two in which I just haven't been there to help, like Anti-Haven Memorial or I think it was an XFL 1v1 that I missed.
And then XMG happened, and you're part of the what the council, or are you a ref, or what's going on with XMG?
So with I joined XFL as an admin. I think I was the third admin after Dingus and maybe Wraith, and I think Goofy was there at one point. Um, and that merged probably coming up on a year ago now into the MMG and formed XMG, which was for both regions. And I'm currently a referee, uh, so pretty much referee. I can pretty much dip my hands in anything if I want to help out, more or less, but I'm not really in charge of one set thing. Something I just helped out recently with VAR is the tier chart rankings when we finish a tournament and we go over the match scores to evaluate people. Although I will say VAR does the majority of work on that matter.
Why did they take like 3 months to come out? Like, why aren't?
Alright, we figured out the evaluations within a few days, but like Rect goes full on tryhard on the sheet, and like I'll give him a lot of credit. It looks like great. Like compared to the EU one, it blows it out of the water. So like just taking the time to message everyone, their regiment, and get their flag and all that, it just takes them a while to actually set up the actual sheet. But even then, I think this one got out like within like 2 weeks, and then the actual evals were finished within a few days.
Okay. So is XMG like? I know it's not 50-50 NA EU. I think it's more EU oriented. How much more EU do you think it is than NA?
In terms of the staff of the like tournaments,
In terms of like, yeah, what's hosted.
I mean, I would definitely say it's EU orientated, but I mean that's kind of expected just because the European community in both melee and regiments is larger and more structured. Uh, Also, just generally, when we did the merge, we went into MMG because there was just 2 to 3 times as many people already there. So I wouldn't say it's like EU doesn't have the final say because NA can run their own things with EU input just as much as EU can run their own things with NA input. In terms of just how many people sign up to tournaments and how many people go to the EU pickups and what EU tournaments are run, maybe 60-40, maybe. Again, that's a very rough estimate though.
Well, okay. I'm glad things have smoothed over between my Discord and XMG. I know that when XMG first formed, like after the merger, things were very rough to say the least. Um, but that all smoothened out, and I think we're in a good spot now. We do pickups, and then XMG does a tier chart, and it seems that my Discord is going to be doing more of the 1v1 tourneys, and then XMG is going to be doing more of the group fights. So pretty much, we're doing what they're not, and they're doing what we're not. So I think it works out. Do you think it's at a good balance?
Yeah, I think it's fine, especially with Adam coming in recently and kind of helping revive the NA pickups.
Oh, Adam's been like a godsend, reviving pickups. I think yeah, he does a really good job, even with a little bit trolling that happens every now and then.
Yeah, we do a little bit of trolling.
I kind of want to talk about your 1v1 journey. You, like, even before you got your new computer, you've been in a lot of tournaments. You kind of fell flat on your face. You've probably gotten like completely swept sometimes. So I want to ask you, like, what kept you going, like getting stomped so badly, but you just kept coming back?
I mean, I don't really care. Like, would I like to win? And when am I like, am I upset when I lose? Sure. I've probably done more tournaments than anyone else, like 20 plus at this point. I've never won one. Uh, I don't really care about winning though, because there's no cash prize anymore. uh, but I don't really care too much about the score, and like, I'm not gonna RQ when I lose, like a lot of people do. There's fucking, I'm sure there's a long list of people that have RQ'd out of some melee related thing, and sure, I've probably ditched pickups because everyone upset, but a 1v1 tournament, it's very minimal in the whole scheme of things. I care more about like how someone does in a line battle compared to how someone does in a tournament in which they're going to be fighting one person, which will happen very rarely in actual events. But
Are you hoping to win one, like in maybe this year, maybe next year?
I mean, I would like to win one, but in no way am I going to actually put the time in to win one. So I guess not. I'm not really. I haven't actually grinded like melee to improve in the past 6 to 7 months. Like even in the RGL, like even in RGL, I really wasn't grinding to improve. By the later half of things, I would do the regiment trainings, and that was about it. It seemed to be enough though, because I focused much more on group fighting than I did on dueling.
Okay. Let's talk about the HDL now. You reluctantly accepted the team owner slot after we couldn't find anyone suitable. I think it was either you or like Rect or some other troll. I don't know,
It was
but
Dory.
yeah, some other troll is the right description. um, so we all kind of know how it went down. We actually we didn't do too bad actually. We went to the finals. That we even won like one of the matches, and then we lost in the finals like very close. Um, So can you just talk about sort of like the ups and downs and how that whole experience was like from draft to like the final match?
Um, I definitely really didn't want to be an owner because I didn't really want to have responsibility over it. But since there wasn't another person who knew enough about NA Melee or could be trusted with admin, I did it. The draft was fun to do. I kind of went into it with a structure, but after the first round, I ditched it completely. I made sure to pick up Greasy early so he could help me with the other picks, and that's kind of why my team ended up, although it was Team USA, the Dream Team, it was predominantly European players, more so than actually any other team. Especially on the TRB side, which at one point of our starting 12, like 5 of those guys were TRB. Uh, Downs was definitely forcing people to get on to play something they didn't want to do, which was something that seems to have been shared by pretty much all the owners, as well as just dealing with everyone shit talking one another. There wasn't like most like banter is completely fine, but like someone would join the VC, and most of the engagements was corn with the other team, mostly the European guys, and that was just a little bit annoying to deal with. But at the same time, it's melee, so it can be expected. I am happy with how we played. We ended up taking second, and we forced a second match. So I just accidentally went into channel commander with Ed, and they're doing out. I think a 2v2 at the moment. But yeah, I mean, it had its ups and downs, but I was happy with how we did, and overall, it was enjoyable. I don't know if I would do it again though.
When you say you don't know when you would do it again, do you mean like be owner again?
Yeah, I definitely sign up to play again.
And I was team owner. Obviously, you need to draft a team, and then you need to either schedule yourself or you need to um, have someone schedule for you, like as part of a team staff. But obviously, you also need to be in charge of sort of mustering everyone together for the matches. So, like, what part of all that do you find like the most stressful, or something you don't want to be responsible for anymore?
Scheduling a match time is pretty easy. You can put a time down. Like it's not like I know Pepe Goss said this in the interview before. I could put down a time and I would pretty much get any regiment started to show up unless they just really were busy. With HDL, it was just a pain to get people to show up. Uh, and you always had to DM them and figure out, what times they can make and just try and get as many players on at the same, get as many players on at the same time. We'll try and get as many of your like upper boys on at the same time because you want to bring as many as possible. But at the same time, you don't want to bring 17 guys and then miss your top 8 players. So generally speaking, we didn't really have an issue where that ever came up. Um, but just getting people to actually react to the post to show up to an event was enough of a hassle already.
I don't think it helped that we did it simultaneously with the RGL. Um, I think we sort of just like came up with the idea of the HDL, and then we were just like, let's do it. Um, I don't know. We probably could have waited a bit for like RGL to end and then maybe do it because the EU HDL would not have happened if it wasn't for the NA HDL first, right? So maybe we could have done the NA HDL for when the EU HDL happened, and then we didn't have to compete with any leagues. Do you think we kind of jumped the gun with starting it, like simultaneously with the RGL, or do you think we did it at an okay time?
Um, I looking back on it, I probably would have waited an extra week or two, but that would have been the limit. I didn't expect RGL to run that long. I don't think any of us really did. Christmas break and then a few delays in the final stage definitely got in the way. So, there was no way that we could have known that it would have lasted until January. Um, I may have just would have given it an extra week or two, either in between the draft or just before the draft to give time for more signups.
Um, I do want to talk about the Serb situation a little bit. No, I don't want to spend too much time on it. Um, but looking back on it, like, do you think that you had any faults on your end? Because when I think I DM'd you about this, but the time window you gave Serb, you didn't give him a lot to work with, and I think he kind of felt like he was backed up into a corner, and then he reluctantly accepted a time slot when he had the commissioner on his ass, when he had the admin staff on his ass. He just said okay to something, and then that we all know how that turned out. So looking back, do you feel like you could have approached it any differently?
I partly agree and I partly disagree. Uh, I think that I didn't give many times, and I also don't think he gave many times. I'm pretty sure I gave Sunday, and I think he gave Friday. Or no, I gave Sunday and he gave Saturday, with Friday was off the board, I believe. Um, the only issue, no, he gave Friday and Saturday. I gave Sunday. The actual times on those days, he couldn't do before like 6 p.m. I think, and say my team is majority EU. It was a bit of a pain. Uh, I know you stepped in and you forced us at a time, and I guess what I'm saying is I could have given a bit of time. I don't think I would have bought 10. Maybe he would have bought 10, and it just would have been the opposite situation. Looking back on it, we should have just rescheduled though. I will say that my team wasn't going to bother playing another match because everyone was upset when I showed the DMs and the admin staff channel when you said we're playing at Saturday 5, and I came back and said me and Serb agreed for Sunday 7, and Serb said Saturday 5 would actually work better for him, even though I knew we wouldn't be able to pull 10. And at that point, I think Greasy messaged him, or me and Greasy agreed that we're either DQing or we're playing Sunday 7, and Serb said he can get 10 for Sunday 7, or he said he can get Sunday 7. He never said he could get 10. Um, I assumed he meant 10 though. But there was definitely a miscommunication between all and fault on all sides.
Now I look back on it, and obviously rescheduling would have been better. Um, I did kind of go nuclear, but when I think about it, so, like you were there for it. Serb and Dingus were talking to me in such a way where I felt like they had zero respect for me, and they were acting in a very trolly, like purposely malicious and purposely trolly way. And I was very fed up. I was very angry at them, and I just wanted them to really just be out of my way, just get out of the league. Um, Like, do you understand where I'm coming from? Because I
I
know a
do.
lot of people think I went nuclear, but they were just behaving in such a way that like I did not want to deal with them anymore.
Uh, the issues with it is like looking back on it, I don't know if disbandment was the best idea, but at the time, when you threatening not to play, or not even threatening, when you say you're not playing matches, I guess you can't, I'm pretty sure they knew what was going to happen. Uh, it was definitely, I would put a majority of the fault on refusing to play, but looking back on it, I don't think disbanding the team was the best option. Um, I don't know what other solution there was. Um, I guess the most I would suggest to our former selves is just to sleep on it and try and think of something else the next day instead of solving that all at like 2 in the morning
They
because all went very late.
just kept going on and on about like Bob and like why give us Bob, and I'm just like, you people are bothering me. I don't know. Hopefully, season two goes much better. We'll have a new waiver system. We'll have a shortened season, and I think it'll just be good times. Is there anything um, that you want to implement or change from how we did in season one?
I would honestly say scrap waivers. That would really be just the main thing that sticks out to me.
Um, how Greasy did it is he had waivers as a team vote instead of like an automatic. You did worse this week. You get it. You have a team
Yeah.
owner vote. Whoever like deserves it the most sort of gets it. I think that could work pretty well because if we don't have that, then say Draco signs up late, then he can't play the rest of the league, right? So
Yeah, it seemed, it didn't really seem like there were many issues with the EU running of it. I know the first HDL was definitely a very big trial for the system. But that could work. Uh, yeah, that's really my only comment on it. Uh, Other things I can think of is try and get a few more people, and just make sure the tournament runs maybe a bit faster. Just because by the end of it, it taking so long that the juice going into it was already wearing down. Not many people were active by the end, and like I think the finals was like 10v10, 11v11. When originally
yeah,
the league
it got
started
pretty
out,
rough.
yeah, it got pretty small at the end.
So I want to talk about sort of like the TRR group fighting situation, the RGL situation. Um, do you think is Paprika pretty much like one of the major reasons why you guys won the RGL?
Yeah, I don't think there's any denying that. Um, there was obviously a lot of reasons that went into it, but I think the final boost was Paprika joining definitely.
Um, because he not only brought a few people with him, he also trained up the members that were already there, right?
Yeah, before he joined, scores that could be relevant is right before he joined, we were at, I think we 15-1 the 45E, and we lost 15-10 to the KRA. So while we may have been top four after like KRA and 63E and maybe 77th, we certainly weren't number one. And bringing in those four new guys definitely helped us. And as you saw, the score versus the QRR match reverted greatly, an 11 round difference. As well as just helping train up new guys and sort out new starting rosters. Definitely all helped over the next coming months after he joined.
Do you see you guys being like at the top of the top for melee regiments like for the months and years to come?
I don't want to say that because a lot can change in a short period of time. Um, Most I'll say is as long as we hold the same roster for next year's RGL, I think we'll win it again, unless there's massive improvements from other teams and we get washed. But again, this is also melee as we're talking about. Half these people don't actually care about their regiments; they care about the competitiveness of their regiment. I'm certain the rosters will change up in the next 5 months.
um, yeah, you don't really know what's gonna happen. in the
Yeah,
future? Like the landscape's always changing.
like we have 15 people that could probably start a team, and I'm fairly certain a third of them will be gone by then. I don't know who, and I don't know for what, but just because they're on a team comp and they can melee, that's just something I kind of always assume. And so yeah, I think that's an issue that a lot of regiments face predominantly right now, the KRA, because obviously we all know and Vaz joked about it a lot. A part of the cycle of KRA comp is joining the TRB.
I think Patty's the only one that's joined, or has more people joined. Have more people joined as well.
Yeah.
Um, I think we have to talk about the mutes that go on in the Melee Discord. I think they're mostly done by you as well. See, what what should happen is that Spitfire is a part of the TRR, so he's going to protect the TRR members from mutes. But what actually happens is Spitfire is the one muting all the TRR guys. So just tell me, like, how does that work, and why is that?
Um, there's certainly TRR members like Cool Guy and K-pop, and especially Rico, that are definitely some of the worst people in the Melee Discord. So it can be expected that they get mute pretty quickly. However, I also think they know that I'm going to mute them if they do something stupid, and they still do it. And I'm mostly not surprised when I do it because they do it knowing that I'll eventually mute them. It's more or less a time of how long until they get unmuted. But I think I'm just harder on them because um, although they may not be the most active in actual. Holy fuck! I need to change my hockey. I just hopped into that channel commander again. But although like I don't want to when it comes to showing bias, I don't want to show bias to one regiment whether I'm harder than them or less hard on them. If they're in my regiment and they know that they're posting something that I'm gonna either warn them for or mute them for, and they continue to do it, I'm gonna mute them. And again, although they may not be the most active in events, they still play with the TR and comp events. So there is a certain level of trolling I kind of want to hold them at.
Um, do you feel like TRR has like a stigma of immature members? And do you think the stigma is well deserved, seeing as it's mostly TRR members that are always spamming like the Melee Discord and stuff?
Yeah, obviously, I think we're the second biggest regiment on NA, and like Wednesday NA, we pulled 55, but in reality, only three of those four people were actually the melee sweat spammers. So there's definitely stigma there on our melee team, just because 80%, like maybe 12 of the 15 of our starting A team guys, other than like Hunter, Fanta, and Honor, maybe, are under 18. We have like a lot of 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds, and a 14-year-old, one or two on the melee team. They're young, but the melee prodigies, myself included, and they're very immature. In terms of our actual regiment, the average age is older, but those active meleeers um, bring it down a lot. So
Um,
I think it's in terms of our regiment. I don't think it's deserved in terms of our melee squad. Definitely.
I do want to talk to you about something I think I asked Paprika about. The whole like Honor Tyler situation. What do you make of it, and do you think who do you put most of the blame on?
Um, this is a situation that I wasn't present. I was funny enough. I was the one that ended up dealing with it because I got back after 2 days and I went back and checked my DMs and they were like 2 days old and I had a DM from Getty. And pretty
You
much
never want a DM from Getty.
no, like those DMs can be pretty like Getty scares me more than anyone else in this game. And like even when he was like he gave me like official server admin and he still scares me. Uh but I got the DM from Getty and then I asked like could you send me the file of DMs? And after reading it for three messages, like I looked at it and I went to Arna and I said, "Are you fucking stupid or are you dumb?" Because one, he's doing it in the first place, but two, it's very obvious that he was getting baited into it, and you could tell that that was not Tyler writing it, and as you know, Tyler admitted that that was the main reason he did it. But I put blame, I guess, I disagree with trying to bait someone out for being a regiment sniper, but at the same time, there's I'm not gonna deny that there's fault on Honor because although he didn't initiate the conversation, the fact that he continued it um, is still a bit gray. If that kind of makes sense. Like although he didn't start it, there was moments where it could have ended, but it never did. Uh, and I'm never gonna support someone that tries to bait someone as reg sniping, especially. I wasn't aware of it, but I think you're the one that told me that he did it to get promoted, which uh, even as a regiment leader, I wouldn't be on board with that. But I don't want to try and clear what happened in those DMs because it was still very obvious that even if he was getting baited, con- attempting to continue the conversation does not look good.
I think the weirdest part about the whole thing is that Tyler is part of that TRR now. Like, I mean, it went full circle. Like, what do you make of that?
Well, I mean, we didn't really hold a grudge, and I don't think Getty did either. Like, Anna apologized to Getty like 2 days later, and now we co-host the Friday event with NR9 in 26. And we're in those staff VCs often, so I don't think either regiments really hold grudges against one another. And Anna more or less got into a convo with Tyler before he joined, and the agreement was pretty much Pep would look over Tyler and his company, and that would kind of be the end of it. Uh, there's a significant amount of people in the TR that don't like that Anna uh, forgave or forget that quickly. Um, for reasons more than just that. But some people just don't hold grudges, which is a positive that I could work on myself. Um, Tyler, Anna, and Getty in that situation, they all handled it well.
I'm glad everything worked out. Um, I want to talk about Equil a bit. Equil's he's an interesting character to say the least. Um, he's very chill, like on text. He's a bit ragey, I've heard, over mic, and he kind of broke through out of nowhere in the Kumite and won it. Um, so yeah, what do you make of Equil?
Um, in terms of his melee, I think I'd probably put him at high tier. Compared to who else is high tier, Paprika and Reddish, and I think he's definitely number two NA probably after Reddish. On XMG at least, I'd have to see a duel though before I can confirm one over the other. I definitely think Equal is the best person to give Reddish a run for his money though. Other than Paprika is probably at the same level as well. Uh, Equal's also a very good group fighter, and a lot of NA middles, like not to be blunt, but the NA middle in group fights is very very bad. And I think the TR was the only regiment in RGL where our mid was better than our flanks, and maybe that is what won us it, maybe not. And Equal definitely performed well under our mid with honor because they were facing players that they could move into and 2v3, 3v1, and target switch Haven on them. So that's kind of the melee aspect. In terms of running things, Equal has been in the regiment now for about a year, and he's a color sergeant, which is an NCR rank, and RD. And he helps with administrations thing as well as helping lead RD/RD lines, and he also now helps admin events and stuff and runs a majority of the one-on-one melee trainings.
Has he chilled out a bit with the whole being a spaz thing?
It depends on the day.
Oh,
I think he's definitely not nearly as worse as what he was at like when he got demoted, and if that ever happened again,
oh,
you'd see
I
his
want to
tag.
hear that story again and again and again. I can't get enough of it.
It was I have an entire recording of like that session and the demotion session, which I've kept like in my files. I won't go into detail out of respect, but
Detail, detail, detail.
uh, he knows what he did wrong and it was fixed. And if it ever happened again, he probably wouldn't touch NCO again. Uh, and his tags haven't changed since, so yeah, I think it's fine.
How often does that happen? Like where someone just completely has a meltdown?
Um, not I mean it's not like it's a daily event that we all have to spread drama about. I mean, like I was like the last major one I can really think of, to be honest.
I don't think I've witnessed many meltdowns in my days. Everyone is just kind of chill. I don't know. Um, so who's your best friend in the TRR? Like not someone like who you're like looking over, not someone that like answers to you, just a friend. Who's your best friend?
Best friend on a video game.
Best
Um,
friend.
I mean, I probably play the most games with Recall, out of Holdfast, but at the same time, I don't play anything out of Holdfast really that often anymore. So I guess I would say equal probably.
Okay. You're both similar in age as well, right?
Yeah, I'm 17 and he is almost, if not 16. I think he's 16.
It's so weird. You're 17 and you're like a hold fast boomer. Like,
I got the game when I was just after I turned 13, I think.
oh, Patty's age.
Oh god, yeah.
So is there anyone you're close to or talk to a lot outside of the regiment?
I'd say I speak most often with outside of the regiment, most often with either Peep or Va, probably. I think Va maybe.
XMG related stuff or other things?
Yeah, yeah, XMG, and there's the occasional. Like me and Va both do the most in terms of NA comp, so there's like a lot of conversations about that, and just mainly in general, and just the game in general, like the regiment atmosphere and all that.
Okay.
I think we're both now NWL mods, so there's also a lot of talks about that as well.
Yeah, NWL is just right around the corner. Um, I think something needs to happen with that OA rule. Both the OA rule and I think there's a rule that says you have to move like after 1 or 2 minutes. Um, do you have any like problem with those rules? Because it seems like all the drama is involved with those two rules.
With NWL, actually, the I know I've done this twice tonight, and when I accidentally went into Channel Commander, Ed was leading a 2v2 versus the 45E, and they were trialing our new rule set, more or less just trying to figure out how long the matches were. And we did a very long meeting, two or three, I think two of them, picking new referees and going over the rule set. We've covered most of them, and a lot of I don't want to name specifics, although it's pretty well known by now. But it's definitely going to be two lines in NWL, and a lot of the timer rules, pistol rules, spacing rules, and all that is subject to change. To that, the rule set will look a lot more like the European line league versus the North American this coming season. So hopefully it's more enjoyable for the actual players because it's a bit more action packed, less sitting around, and just hopefully faster matches.
Now, are you just a ref for the
No,
upcoming one, or are you a mod, or what are you doing?
I'm a moderator, and I was a mod for season two. And um, pretty much to sum it up is you have referees which ref matches, then you have moderators which sit in on referees slash help make admin decisions. Although there is specific admins, those being Starblazer and Emit, uh, effectively the same thing in terms of the actual running of NWL, except Emit and Star are kind of almost like the committee heads, and they also are involved in the running of other tournaments out of the NA competitive Holdfast Discord.
I want to talk a bit about the way I host things and the way Starblazer does. I'm not going to get into like what my relationship with him and what happened. That's not something I want for this interview. But so the way I run leagues, and I think you've been in what 2 leagues that I've run now. You've helped me out. Um, Pretty much, I make the decisions, right? Like I might run things by you or someone else, but I have the final say. I'm just gonna, if I need to, I'm just gonna make the decision like right there and then, right? Sort of like a dictatorship, like an assisted dictatorship, I guess would be the
Yeah.
best way I run things. And then Starblazer, he's kind of sets up this, like you said, he sets up this council, and everything is sort of agreed upon. It's more of a democracy, I would say. So, what do you think are the pros and cons of our different ways of running leagues?
Um, if you're dealing with a situation like a melee tournament or HDL, you don't really need a super huge amount of input from a bunch of people. But when you're dealing with regiments who can get very upset about a certain call, then it's best to have as many opinions as possible, especially when you only have one people, so the question of bias can't come in. And I'm not saying that anyone on the NWL staff is biased, but if there was one person making all the decisions, they would be called biased, at least by multiple groups. And saying that there's 9 people making the decisions from um, 40, 70, 63, 8th LR, uh, KRA, and TRR, you can't really claim, in 45E, you can't really claim bias. It's also good to have just input from people that have experience in different, both in real life and other games as well. Uh, so I think just dealing with more regiments, like when you have more people on the staff, sure, it takes a lot longer to get things done, and you can have a lot of different opinions, which brings positives in, but it cancels out bias and it just brings more input, which, you're going to find that quality input in the quantity of it. Now, obviously, with running it with one person, you can get things done pretty quickly, and you don't have to wait on feedback or meetings, which is also a pro as well. So I guess those are the two ways to see those from my perspective.
I guess the con being that when you have one person with all the power, sometimes those 2 a.m. arguments can turn into something you wish you would have slept on, or you wish there was a vote or something, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So I guess everything has its pros and cons.
Yeah.
Um, let's see here. So what would need to happen for you to leave the TRR?
Um, Someone does something really stupid at the top, uh, regiment dies, or I'm just to the point where I can't take a long-term LOA, and it would make more sense just to go veteran. I guess those are the three reasons I can mainly see for me leaving.
Are you playing Holdfast for the TRR?
Um, I mean, I would still play Old Fast if I wasn't in the TRR, but when it comes to like the amount of time spent in the game and line battles, it's mostly taken up by the TRR. If there was someone that I could have given some sort of responsibility to and trust them not to screw it up, so I could take a longer like time off, I would have done it by now. But if I want something done, I want it done right, and that's kind of more or less the reason why I haven't really given up any responsibilities until that person arrives, if that makes sense.
Um, Hypothetically speaking, obviously, what regiments do you think you'd be looking at if it wasn't for the TRR?
I mean, I enjoy the NA groups, NR9, 70, yeah, NR9, 77, 63, 45E. I wouldn't join any of those groups. Maybe most inclined to join 45E for melee or NR9 for like Prussian, because I love Prussia. Uh, and I have a new admiration for 63 in events. I now pretty much after events I'll watch Zen stream from a different perspective, or I'll watch events I didn't go to because I actually just really enjoy them now. More than I did because I kind of always just went off the stereotypes of 63 in events. But if I were to leave, I would probably go TRB or QRR, which are EU dominant groups, but they still attend NA events, especially TRB. And although they're EU majority, I like a lot of their EU guys, and I don't have any issues with their NA guys either.
Yeah, I was about to say like the 63 and the NR9 are they're a bit uptight. I think you're looking for like more of a casual scene.
It would be, yeah. I would go to a casual scene where I can take like any enlisted rank and just roll with Artie or lead the occasional line.
Um, I think we're actually at the end. We sort of talked about everything. Is there anything we didn't talk about that was a major part of your Holdfast journey?
Um, no, nothing really that comes to mind. I mean, yeah, nothing that can I really think of, to be honest.
Okay. Has there been anyone influential? Anyone you want to give a shout out to?
Yes, I'd like to give a shout out to my mom for raising me. Uh, Thank you very much. You'll never hear this. Uh, let's see. I mean, there's a lot of people I could do for different reasons, but I guess the person that got me involved in the game mostly, J Bob, and probably Honor, just because he's my regiment leader, and I kind of value regiment over like anything else I do in the game, just because I spend the most time doing it.
Awesome. This has been the Spitfire interview. Thank you, Spitfire.
Moi.
Goodbye, everyone.
Peace.